Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of our Festival of the Cloth series of panel discussions. My name is Sansia Campbell, and we want to welcome you and thank you for joining with us this morning for what promises to be another exciting conversation. At this time, I'm going to hand over to our Deputy CEO, Mr. Harold Davis, and he will formally welcome you and introduce you to the members of the panel who will be having the discussion this morning. All right, over to you, Mr. Davis.
It's great to be here this morning. I mean, I feel good to be here in this space, and I feel good and excited as usual to be Jamaican, you know. So me just have me straight out of Jamaica mug in which I had my Blue Mountain coffee. Feeling good. But I have to tell you though that even the Blue Mountain coffee that I had this morning, I'm not even 100% sure it's Blue Mountain, but that's another story completely. Either way, it's a great morning to be here. We are here for the second week of the Festival of the Cloth. Last week we had an exciting conversation talking about the spirit of our culture. And of course, we had our sisters and brother from Nigeria sharing the relationship that Nigeria has with Jamaica, and how they have managed to develop their textile industry into a robust economic product. This week, we're talking about our brand, Jamaica. Now, let's be clear, I mean, Jamaican Brand Jamaica is arguably the most powerful brand there is in the world. Of course, we feel so, but definitely per capita. Some studies were done, and of course, we were way up there in the top 5 in terms of per capita, the strength of our brand, the recognition of Brand Jamaica. No, undoubtedly, we're punching way above our weight class. As a matter of fact, last year, and it was released this year, we did the first phase of our mapping of our creative and cultural industries. And one thing that the consultants came away with unanimously was that our brand Jamaica was something of envy to the entire world, and definitely something that we should leverage significantly. We in Jamaica know that we have never had a problem with the strength of our brand. We know that Jamaica big, we know that Jamaica brand broad. Everybody in the world knows about Jamaica. Our challenge that we have always had is how we leverage that strength, how we leverage the richness of our brand, the richness of our culture, to monetize, to create economic wealth for our folk, to uplift us socially as well as a people. How is it that we do that? So this morning, we're going to talk about brand. We're going to talk about the essence of our brand, the wealth of our brand, and in particular, as it relates to our fashion industry, textiles industry, and our fashion industry. How is it that we can utilize this strength, this wealth that we have in Brand Jamaica, convert it into wealth, economic wealth, social wealth, wealth of purpose, wealth of people for the world to see. And to do that, we have an exciting an August panel. Of course, I'm going to give me August panel joke. August panel, although it's June. Anyhow, to discuss this thing, Brand Jamaican, this morning, and weaving the discussion together. We have my dear friend, Amina Blackwood Meeks, who is no stranger to the Jamaica, to our rich heritage, carrying our rich culture and heritage in Jamaica, one of the brand ambassadors, I believe, of our Jamaican heritage and our Jamaican culture. Amina, I'm so very proud to be able to call you my friend because of the wealth of knowledge and expertise that you bring all the while to us in Jamaica and certainly to the world. We also have Professor Carolyn Cooper, who I also know very, very well from very many sources. And Amina is going to introduce our panelists in more detail and tell you a little bit more about their background and so on. Laura Lee Jones, whom I happen to know very well as well. She is a senior lecturer at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. And she's Laura Lee Jones Davis. So I know her very well. Alo, who is our resident cultural ambassador, and he was with us last week as well. And Alo is, you know, the energy that Alo has brought to us here in Jamaica is that infectious kind of energy that that really listening and watching him work and watching his passion, you just can't help but catch the fever of what he's about. Zam Barrett, who I'm excited to hear from, he is a New York-based Jamaican international designer, and I'm very excited to hear his story and exactly how he has been using our Jamaican brand to leverage his own business and collection. And then finally, in our list of experts this morning, we have Mrs. Janine Fletcher Taylor, again, who I have known from, she used to sing in our choir at St. Boniface Church in Harborview. I don't know if she do much singing anymore, but these days she's an expert in marketing. And she has done studies in, what exactly are the studies in again, Janine? Culture management as well in recent times. And of course, she is our manager for our marketing services right here at Jamaica Business Development Corporation. So welcome, and it's an exciting morning, I am looking forward to the robust discussion. If it's anything like it was last week, which I'm sure it will be, you will be riveted to your seats wherever you are, and you will be probably shouting amen from the choir stall as well. We're looking forward to the exciting conversation this morning. JBDC is committed to this journey of developing the creative and cultural industries and bringing them to the place that they ought to be in terms of the hierarchy of recognition of industries and importance of industries in Jamaica, in our space. We believe that the cultural and creative industry is that industry that can afford us that quantum leap if it is that we invest adequately in it and appropriately in it and develop products on our entrepreneurs in it. So we are committed to this process, and definitely this series is spoken of as phase 2 of the process of developing our textile industry, but definitely there will be a phase 3 and a 4. We are committed to the development of this process. So at this point, I want to invite my friend, Amina Blackwood Meeks, who is going to weave our conversation this morning as she did so expertly last week. So, and welcome to everyone who is here, and we're looking forward to an exciting time. Amina, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Harold. I want to also add my thanks to everyone who has joined us this morning, and a double portion of thanks if you were here last week and decided to come back to be with us. Harold, I think it is very important. You mentioned that you know all the panelists from various walks of life. And that to me seems a very critical part of what it is that we're doing. One hand can't clap. And sometimes we feel as if we're alone in our own corner and there is no linkages that we are creating. And so it is very important that we know one another, that we can cross-fertilize, so to speak, on this journey. Let me now introduce our, I'm not gonna steal your word, you know, you use it already, August panel in June, but me like it. Our really erudite panel of marketers, of researchers, of teachers, of hands-on people, of designers. And let me begin with Professor Carolyn Cooper. Professor Carolyn Cooper, if you ever hear them over here describing you as an Afrocentric fashionista who articulately speaks the language of dress. Yes. And who also, I know, speak 3 other languages. You speak Jamaican confidently. Yes, so that's 2 languages, you know. Jamaican, absolutely. Confidently, and Afrocentric fashionista, the language of dress.
And little English too. Little English too.
Little English, yes, 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 indeed. How could we forget that? Because in the same way we're saying that we need to create linkages in all aspects of the industry, then as many languages as we speak will link the various parts of our brain and none is left idle. So Professor Emerita Carolyn Cooper is a literary critic and cultural analyst who regularly engages in vigorous public debate on a wide range of contentious issues. She just throw in one, Jamaican and little English. But we know she's also concerned about sustainable urban development, about our music and where it is going, about how we treat dance hall and other aspects of popular culture in particular. In the 1990s, she was a columnist for the Jamaica Observer, and she currently writes a weekly column for the Sunday Gleaner. She's an author, and among her publications, we have Noises in the Blood and Sound Clash. We have currently from the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, Laura Lee Jones, whose career has spanned the areas of design, product development, and business development within the creative industries. Once upon a time, she worked at Jampro, and once upon a time, she also worked at JBDC and the International Trade Center. And once upon a time, she also worked with UNESCO on World Heritage and Intangible Cultural Heritage projects. Her engagement at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts sees her as acting head of the Department for Applied Arts, all the things we're talking about, textiles and fashion, jewelry, and ceramics. She's a mother, and I know that persons have a way that they like to be identified with their role outside of how they earn a living, and Laura Lee wants to be identified as married and a mother. Aloha, who is our brother from Nigeria, is an artist. Aloha Lukman Omatayo is a Nigerian artist and volunteer cultural diplomat to Jamaica. He holds a bachelor's degree in painting from the University of Lagos, a Master of Fine Arts in Printmaking from the University of Benin, and is currently pursuing his PhD from the same university. He has worked with our own tourism product development company, and Aloha has been here with us running some of the training in textiles. Zam Barrett, I haven't yet seen Zam, but I believe Zam will be joining us shortly. Zam made a journey from Kingston 13, Jamaica, to New York, where he is known as an international fashion designer with some very big shot names who have worn his labels, whom he has dressed. And these include Alicia Keys, Faith Evans, Cash Millionaires, Will Smith. He has, he started his business just after he left high school, having learned to sew. I think he taught himself to sew when he was 13, a gifted tailor, and started his own business right after he left school, sewing for his friends. Who better to tell you whether your work is going anywhere than when your friends, in fact, put them on. Today, Zam lives in Brooklyn, where he runs Z Space, Z Factory, a clothing store, the Zam Barrett Dialogue, the brand and production facilities, and the soon to be launched Z Market. He wants to be identified as a Christian minister and a father of 2 boys, Jeremiah and Samuel. I have to watch the movies, The Transformer, again, because I'm informed that his work has been seen in movies and TV shows such as Transformers 2. So there we go. Janine Fletcher-Taylor has amassed 30 years of experience in marketing, business development, sales, and retail chain management with some heavyweight organizations such as Grace Kennedy and Company Limited, Sherloom Chemicals, ATL Group, Nothings, and a music label distributor, and at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. Her academic background comprises of the University of Technology, that hands-on place, with her degree in business administration with a marketing major, diploma in hospitality and tourism management from the Institute of Management and Production, and a BA in finance and accounting from the University of London. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in poverty alleviation and development management. All of those are so critical to the places that we, in fact, want to take our own brand Jamaica. I trust I have introduced everyone, and now let us get into the discussion, which the theme today is Jamaica Hands and Hearts, Encircling the Cradle of Brand Jamaica. That is so loaded. Cradle can mean this is where it begins, in the way we have the cradle of mankind in South Africa. I know that Kenya sometimes would like to claim that, but South Africa say is them. The cradle, the thing where it begins, and the place in which it will be nurtured to become fit and strong and stand on its own. I have an interest, however, in how we understand Brand Jamaica. It is a term that we use a lot, and then sometimes when we come to explain what it means, we are not so sure. We are not so sure that those of us who use it in a way that connects to there is no such thing as an ordinary Jamaican, but connects to every Jamaican in a way that they will understand their role, their responsibility to curating it and protecting it and promoting it. So I want to begin by asking my panelists, if you could please share with us in a minute or two or three as an overview, what is this thing we're calling Brand Jamaica? What makes it unique?
Why?
Zam, that's you?
Yes.
Sound like you want to start.
No, why would you come and get myself in that trouble?
At that, no.
Good morning,
If
everybody.
he would keep his mouth shut, he wouldn't get caught.
No, you know, I've been grappling with that term for a long time. A very long time. And even the young lady who invited me to be a part of the forum, I was telling her that I don't want to be controversial, but I don't necessarily know if I subscribe to the term Brand Jamaica. I don't know what it means. And I think that I've seen people use it in so many different ways that I think that so many people use it with either having a different understanding. Each person has their own understanding of what that is. And there is no way to accurately communicate what one person is saying as opposed to another when they use the term. For me, I don't like the term. And I don't like the term because understanding what brands are, I don't think that it does justice to Jamaica and what we're trying to create in terms of fashion. And I can only speak for fashion because that's my area of expertise. To use the term Brand Jamaica, what I would say is that Jamaica has huge cultural capital and across the globe. And we are the cultural touchstone of the Caribbean. You know, I use the example that someone like Rihanna is from Barbados, but she identifies with Jamaica so much because it adds a level of credibility to her that just simply saying she's Bajan probably doesn't. No offense to Barbados, but everybody wants to be Jamaican or speak like Jamaican or associate with a Jamaican when it comes to things Caribbean. And so we have to determine what we want Jamaica fashion to be and to look like. For example, if you say Italian fashion, right away that communicates something where you're talking about products of the highest quality, to the point where designers like Ralph Lauren and others have products made in Italy because they want to have that association with what made in Italy means. So we have to try to figure out what we want Jamaican fashion to be, what we want it to be understood as in the global community, and what unique things are going to be etched into somebody's mind or brought back to the forefront of their memory when you say Jamaican fashion or Jamaican design. That has to mean something specific, and I think the time is now for us to figure out what we want that to mean and how we're going to create it.
Zamia, controversial if it's true, but we're going to come back to many aspects of that controversy, because although you said that you're not sure what Brand Jamaica means and that there is a Brand Jamaica in the way we understand brand and that we have to decide what we want, you then referenced Italy as a place where we can access products of the highest quality. Mm-hmm. And that implies a comparison. That implies that we are at a level, we are not at the level that we think we are. So I want you to think about that as we go around the panel, just to get their feedback, either independent of what you have said or in relation to what you have said. Yeah. Let me go to Laura Lee, because you're at an institution that is a one of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean, the first and only, and prides itself as turning out products of the highest quality. How are we to understand Brand Jamaica?
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Meeks, and good morning to everyone in the joining. You know, in November last year, JBDC had a conversation about Brand Jamaica. And one of the things that I did say at that time, which, you know, is in alignment with what Zan just said, is that there is no real clear definition of what Brand Jamaica is. And that definition, we need to have a clear understanding nationally of what that really means. Yeah. And so, as he said, high quality of standard was one of the things that, you know, I said, you know, it needs to speak to that when we say Brand Jamaica. And this is right across all sectors, right across the board, right? We need to also, you know, maybe have some thematic focus on this Brand Jamaica. It's very broad, you know? Mm-hmm, yeah. Also, and, you know, sometimes when people think Brand Jamaica, they think it's, you know, you just, you know, put Jamaica on something, you know, made in Jamaica, or you put the flag. But for it to have that kind of endorsement, if you want to call it that, there must be a measure, there must be a standard, right? That is, it meets so that it can have those marks on it. And I think as a nation, within these, you know, the various ministries, you know, JBDC, a more serious and focused conversation about defining Brand Jamaica is needed. And so when we have a clear definition, when I step into the classroom here at the college, you know, when I communicate to my students about design and design that is, you know, involves Jamaican motifs and Jamaican iconography, they're understanding, they're coming from a place, so they're designing from a place where we're looking at one standard, and we're also looking at authenticity and you know, what is that true value proposition that we're bringing to the table under this umbrella of Brand Jamaica.
Thank you for that. So in addition to the standard of the work, the quality of the work, you have now introduced that we need to consider a distinction between brand and branded. And the fact that I am branded, made in Jamaica, doesn't necessarily mean that I represent the brand Jamaica. I'd like to have the take of the marketer, Janine, on this. Janine? you have to market what it is that
Morning,
we're trying to.
everyone.
Yes.
Morning.
Yes, so for me, the term Brand Jamaica does speak to the technical term of branding. It has values, it has some level of identity, and it has a cultural element that is unique to the specific location. So technically, there is a brand. It has been validated by the market. The global sphere identifies with it, right? However, for it to be of value, we must be able to demonstrate the economic return on its existence, and hence the reason for our brand in the first place. Over time, branding, you're supposed to be able to leverage on that for economic return. And you're supposed to have some level of multiplier effect for persons who wish to utilize it or rest on it, as my friend earlier spoke about Rihanna. Right? So every time something like that happens, there must be some economic return that we can identify for it to be useful. The problem, I believe, from a marketing perspective, is that the elements of our brand that are connecting with the global sphere are often intangible, very emotional. And as such, the ability to interpret that and put it into a tangible, monetizable framework is challenging in and of itself, right? Then we have the diversity and the diversity of elements in that brand identity is dependent on who in the global sphere is connecting to it. So if you go to each different region, they will have something that they would associate with Brand Jamaica. And oftentimes the things that the global sphere associates with it, locally we say we are being stigmatized or pigeonholed or, it's cliche. So we talk about the colors, Rastafarian, reggae music. And when we say that's brand, those are the elements of Brand Jamaica that people connect with, locally we say that's cliche, right? Now, the variability of interpretation is what is causing the problem. And what Laura mentioned earlier about having a clearly articulated brand vision coming out of the country and ensuring that that vision for the brand connects with what the world sees it as, because they are the ones that we're going to be trading with. Until you can actually monetize that, record its actual returns, where you can identify specifically that this monetary value that persons are willing to pay for it is as a result of the fact that Brand Jamaica was stamped on it, that it has the particular features and characteristics such as what we talk about with Paris and what those features represent, until we can transfer the intangible values into some clearly articulated words that the world agrees with, because ultimately the brand value is based on how people perceive it and what they will be willing to pay for what is associated with it. Until we are able to do that, then it's all emotions. And I think the frustration that you hear when we try to talk about economics and Brand Jamaica is that missing element. We get very emotional, but we have to find a way to leverage now for economic return.
So many very important things you have said, some of them controversial as well, or not decide to be controversial this morning. And one of them is whether the mathematic computation is the only way we have to measure and value what it is that we have. I hope we have time to come back to other ways of measuring the value of what we have. What I want to do now is to attach on to your comment about diversity. We're not just diverse in the global marketplace. We are diverse right here in Jamaica. I believe if you were to take one Jamaican from each parish, I like to do this, because I like to eat. And I believe we could start a little debate about how to cook rice and peas. We would have 14 different recipes. And if you took 2, you would have 28 different recipes. But we're going to end up with rice and peas as a singular thing made in many diverse ways that we all enjoy. So there are different kinds and expressions of Jamaican fashion. And some of us have the fashion designer that we will go to over and over and over again, because what they create as the second skin, I love that phrase that our African sister taught us last week, what they create as the second skin is so very important to us. Professor Carolyn Cooper wears some very beautiful second skins, the fashionista who speaks the language of dress. And there are some Jamaicans that she trusts with the brand with which she wants to identify. So Professor Cooper, I wonder if you want to share with us your understanding, your response to this business of Brand Jamaica. What exactly is how you see it?
Well, the first thing I would say is that there is no singular Brand Jamaica. One of the terrible issues that we have to confront in this society is the issue of class. Some of the aspects of Jamaican culture that working class people would see as intrinsically Jamaican, Brand Jamaican, are the very things that are rejected by the elite. So you have contestation over Brand Jamaica. So that is one of the first things we have to address. And then I want to go way back, because when you think, I'm not a marketer, my discipline is literature, so I'm interested in language and the connotations of words. Remember that a brand used to be a mark that you burnt into the skin of a human being or an animal to signify ownership. So from the very beginning, the brand was associated with economic value. I own you, quote unquote, and so I can brand you with the name of my parents, my own name. So, the brand is that mark of ownership. And for us, as descendants of enslaved Africans, branding is a troubling construct. But in the modern period, branding is now used in a more neutral way to signify ownership of particular intellectual properties, values that you want to control. So we do have Brands Jamaica, but the question is, who are these brands for? Where did these brands originate? And who is going to benefit from marketing the brand? Take, for example, dancehall. Dancehall is a global Jamaican brand, but in Jamaica, dancehall is still disregarded. So I don't think the people who are in charge of our cultural industries, creative industries, have recognized the full potential of dancehall fashion, dancehall culture as a way of marketing Jamaica. Remember, that's the same way they used to view reggae until all of a sudden Bob Marley became a global icon. And you see Marley with a split branding Jamaica. At the same time that real life, well, not that Bob Marley wasn't real life, but non-celebrity Rastafari were still routinely being imprisoned, beaten up for having a spliff. So, we have to really look at the complexity of our society. That is one of the issues when we are talking about branding. Who is branding and for whom?
Thank you very much. I'm hearing issues of reparation. I'm hearing issues of repurposing. I'm hearing issues of relanguaging. And I'm going to use the word that you use, the contestation, the resistance to the people who really create, as perhaps some of the stumbling blocks and the hindrances to all the things we say we need to understand about Brand Jamaica and its uniqueness and its diversity and its global appeal and so on. I want to ask Allah whether he would come in now and tell us how you perceive, how you received Brand Jamaica once you stepped into this space for the first time. Did you recognize what we were talking about?
Yes, but I do recognize what we're talking about Brand Jamaica. Yeah, I think what I see, or the first thing I knew about Jamaica was Bob Marley, even though before I even dreamed of coming to Jamaica. for very long years, my father used to listen to Bob Marley, even though I thought Bob Marley from Africa, that even I thought it is one of the African country. Not until when I grow up, then I said, oh, it's from Jamaica. Jamaica, I always go on the African map to check where is Jamaica on the African map. I did so, man, there's no Jamaica on this place. Fine, I left it, but I love Bob Marley music. We love it in Africa, Nigeria. We listen to it almost every time, every day when we're having a party. Not until I was appointed as a cultural diplomat, then I need to go more research where I'm going. Then I knew that, okay, Jamaica is on the Caribbean island. So that thing alone, the music of Jamaica really it is a brand and recognized. And that is reggae music and all over the world. I could put it that way, as in proudly put it that way all over the world through the Bob Marley. And then again, coming to Jamaican again, started listening and hearing dance hall and some other things like that. Oh man, those are the very unique things that I see that is much more different from Africa or any part of the world that I've been to, that it is not there. Those things, and once ever you hear that, you know that since that time, whenever I hear the dancehall, the Bob Marley, the reggae, and things like that, Rastafarian, their movement and all those kind of things, it is so unique that it is not in any part of the world that I know.
I'm absorbing that, and I'm absorbing it in a way that I would like to invite all the panelists to think about and perhaps share whether this brand is historical, whether it has been watered down, whether we still have it, and what we need to do to revive it. We reference Bob Marley. Bob is not around. Bob Marley wasn't a fashionista. If Jamaican, pardon me?
He was a fashion icon. He was.
I'm coming to that. I'm saying if at all he was going to be seen as a Jamaican fashionista, you say fashion icon, it would be with his jeans, his jean pants and his jean shirt. And when we talk about the African connection or the full story of Jamaica, that I think we're trying to unpack when we're looking at how to develop and move our fashion industry forward, I think that the jeans and the long sleeve jean shirt would be another controversial item, Zam, but you are defending Bob as a fashion icon. So would you come in here for me, please, and continue with that?
Yeah, there is an overlap between fashion and music that is unmistakable. And that the power of music to propel fashion and fashion to propel music must be something that we see. Like, for example, you can't really talk about Shabba in his early days without his fashion. And you can't really talk about Shabba's fashion without Biggie, the tailor who made his clothes. So Biggie's career and global influence was given a platform by Shabba, and Shabba's style of dressing was enhanced to go along with his music by Biggie. Bob, if you there's a designer now in London called Grace Wales Bonner. If you look at her work and you understand how Bob used to dress in the 70s, it's unmistakable with those tracksuits, slim fitting tracksuits, all of that kind of stuff. It's all infused in our work. Many people might not know this, but Bob used to date Vogue editor Anna Wintour. So how do you separate all of those things? And sometimes people don't set out to be fashion icons or fashionistas, but their aesthetic and their personal sense of style is so strong that it ends up being that way, not because they're intentional. Like I remember when I went to college, there was this girl, all she wore was jeans and camisoles to school. And when it got a little chilly, she put on a cardigan over her shoulders, but her style was so refined that, and so effortless that you had to pay respect to how she comported herself. And I think that Bob, it was the same thing. When you look at Bob's style, you saw a certain aesthetic refinement that maybe he himself might not have been conscious of it, but it was there. So from that perspective, I think he's a fashion icon.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Alao.
Yes. Now, if I'm to talk about Brand Jamaica in fashion, now I'm relating it to Africa. If you see in Africa, Nigeria in particular, or Ghana, we have our unique dresses or fabric that once we look at it, we know that this is from Ghana, Kente from Ghana, or once we look at it, we know that this is from Nigeria or Kenya or any other African country. Aside from that, not just the musician alone, but then our leaders, they don't do away with our fashion. When I mean fashion, locally made materials that symbolize or that sell our identity. Things like that, I must tell you the truth. Yeah, aside from saying that, I said, I get to know about Jamaica through Bob Marley. Jamaican is Eurocentric in terms of fashion. Let us put bandana aside. What is the other thing? Jamaican have a lot of things. When I came to Jamaica, I discovered, yeah, when I was appointed to teach that the art of tie-dye batik. But the first research I did, because I work with the Ministry of Tourism, I told them that they should take me to their markets. What are the cloth that they produce? Now I went to the market. Yeah, everything is kind of tie-dye, but almost 90% made from China. And I asked, well, what did you do? What are the things you people do yourself? Then, okay, what are your motifs? I went online to check what are the Jamaican motifs and that. Hardly I can find any one of them. Google online, check African design or African motif. You see 1,000,001. The same thing, this Adinkra from Ghana, all those things. It has been unique to our culture, right from our childhood. So it makes us to recognize most of those things. But then now, when I start teaching, despite the fact that I was using some of the Jamaican design, the ganja leaf, from culture, anything designed from the culture, the Taino images, and all things like that from Jamaica. Most of the Jamaicans still see the clothes and call it, oh man, I love this African and African batik, man. I love all this African design. And I said, they are not African design. They are Jamaican design. Find they might be kind of uniqueness or will have the same kind of symbol with different meaning. You know, things like that sell not just Jamaica, but the people of the Jamaica. That was what I'm saying. In the area of fashion, I believe that Jamaica is more Eurocentric. He's not wearing the trousers and shirts. But check, even though the Ghanaian or Nigerian musician, you will still see them with those. Okay, now you want to ask a question? You want to say something? Okay, I can hear you, sir.
Allow me to come in here, please.
Sure.
Zam, because I don't want us to lose sight of the very important points which have been raised so far. Mm-hmm. And a very important point which has been raised by Alao is the extent to which we are expressing an identity, a history, a genealogy, which is ours, that we can lay claim to, or that we have disclaimed, as opposed to one that was forced upon us. The second thing I hear us saying from a comment in the chat, what are the motifs? And somebody is thinking about Bob Marley, his tam and his locks, and the combination to symbolize reggae is a caution about reductionism. And I want to ask Professor Cooper whether she would comment on those for me, please. Then I will come back to you, Zam.
Most
we'll go back to other members of the panel.
Well, I have to agree with Alao. We are very Eurocentric, but we don't like to concede it. You remember when we had the Black Panther movie? People were wearing African, quote unquote, African clothes, deck out any little thing by them fine when I look so European, everybody dressed to push barefoot in it. And I said to myself, I wonder how long this will last. As soon as the Black Panther vibe done, them done with the African clothes. So I said, so done. You used to wear African clothes no more than so, except for the die-hard ones like us who know that this is an essential part of our identity. And as we're talking about the jeans, the blue jeans aesthetic for Bob Marley, I don't know how many people know that the jeans were originally dyed by natural indigo plant. Until now it's been done with, synthetic dyes. Jamaica used to be a major producer of indigo. Yes, it was one of the crops that enslaved Africans were forced to cultivate, but I think we need to revive some of these traditions. One of my friends, she's doing this work, Michelle, can't remember her name, she's going to kill me, but she has been doing a lot of work with indigo. I'm going to get her name and bring it up because she needs to be honored for what she's doing to revive indigo in Jamaica. So yes, it's Eurocentric. We're products of the history where we have been trained, socialized, encouraged to disregard everything African and to big up Europe. And it's really a sad comment on our contemporary situation that we still have not reclaimed the Africa within us. And allow, when those people are saying that the designs of African, they are right. Is African in a way, but it is African Jamaican, but they can't accept it as their African. So they try to distance themselves from it. And I have to tell you, them cloth we have in your background is very teethable, Allow. You need to bungle up some of them and bring them for me. They are absolutely beautiful.
All right, you and Alok can talk about that afterwards.
Lady
Zam,
Amina.
hold on, because I want to go to both Janine and Laura. And Janine, I want to ask you, how difficult does it make your work as a marketer of Brand Jamaica that we have not yet emancipated ourselves from mental slavery, and therefore we will choose the European designs and feel more comfortable in them over something that reflects our history? And right after that, Laura Lee, without any interruption from me, I would like you to comment on whether you experience that difficulty in the students that you teach, whether first of all, you dispense to them the information that would allow them to claim their African heritage and identity in the textiles that they create, and whether how accepting they are of it. So how difficult is your work, Janine? And what is the educational process, Laura Lee, by which we come to this emancipation from mental slavery reflected in that which we create to be worn?
Okay, so for me, the difficulty resides in two main elements: the emotions associated with what we view as Brand Jamaica, and the intangible force that propels what we call Brand Jamaica. There is a certain amount of it that is more of a vibe, an intangible feeling, than it is tangible motifs. So as we look at things Jamaican, and we would have been interacting with an entire international travelers market, and how we have sought to bridge that gap is really to converse with the persons who are spending the money and ask them, what is your view on Brand Jamaica? What do you connect with Brand Jamaica? And unfortunately, I mean, when we were speaking earlier about fashion and music, I would go a little further to say fashion and icons. So whether or not the representative in the fashion outfit is a musician or just someone that is perceived as a icon or somebody that has fans, those persons sort of endorse or communicate what is. So if we have our musicians, for example, going overseas and performing, if we were able to determine what our fashion would look like, what our motifs are, then the education process now would be how those icons exhibit it. Because as it is now, it's all emotions, it's all about the vibe. And I think perhaps that's why they gravitate towards the colors more so than the motifs. And the motifs that they would gravitate to, of course, is the ganja leaf is very popular because of the Rastafarian context of Jamaica's culture and Bob Marley and all of that. So persons understand it. So as a marketer, it's really to find a way to communicate this context, to communicate the history, to communicate the foundation, the roots of the brand to the market, so that the market can understand what it is they are connecting with. Because as it is now, it's really just what they see in the mainstream, what they see and what they associate with and what they can identify as, oh yes, when I see that, it's Jamaican. And our flag is a major motif, so to speak. When they see that, when they see the color combination, they automatically gravitate to that and identify it as Brand Jamaica. But because we know that it has so much more depth, I think what we want to get at is a way to communicate that depth so that when we're selling it, when we're marketing it, it's not just us trying to convince persons. When they come, they should see it, they should feel it. They should be able to identify with it, because it's not so much what we are saying, but what the market is interpreting and identifying with what we say is Brand Jamaica. I think it's probably too convoluted, too variable right now. And as a result of that, we lose a lot of the value in what we can offer.
Thank you very much. Laura Lee?
Yes, Dr. Meeks. I want to share my screen at this point because I think some of the things, I'm a visual person, you know. So I'm going to just share. Sansia, tell me when I can. But before I answer your question, Dr. Meeks, I want to just put something on the table, and between yourself and Dr. Cooper, and as a student of history myself, I wonder if we, you know, when we look at the history of textiles in Jamaica, in comparison to textiles on the African continent, you know, where there's a longer tradition, a much longer tradition, years and years and years. On our side here, you know, in the Caribbean, people were forcibly brought to this side of the world as enslaved people, leaving long-standing traditions that they knew. Definitely leaving long-standing traditions in textiles, so the manufacture of fabric, the weaving, the printing, to start a whole new life here, right? Where there are retentions, or there's retention, yes, but I wouldn't say there was enough to really get a textile industry going. We grew cotton in various parts of this side of the world, but it went to somewhere else to be made into fabric, right? So if I look at things within that context, then I can't be so hard on the fact that we're so Eurocentric in our style up to this day, because as enslaved people, you were given things, you know, things are passed on to you from these slave masters, the enslaved, the colonizers. We did as much as we could, or our ancestors rather, did as much as they could with what they had. And some of it the Africanness was maintained in aspects of it. So you can see that in the headdress, for example, but it was really an intertwining of, you know, what you're given to work with, and then holding on to the traditions that you'd have known coming from Africa, right? Now, if I come forward a little now to independence and post-independence, right? Next year, we are celebrating 60 years of independence. So we are still, I would say, in that search for this identity. What is that Jamaican identity, right? We still do not have any textile mill in Jamaica. Between the 60s, 70s, up to the 80s, we had a few mill. The big one, Aragonaba, out there in St. Catherine, used to produce thousands of yardage of cotton and calico, even denim, right? That place closed down, right? Now that, I remember, I think when in about 1983, when you had the independence celebration, right? They recognized that there were thousands of yards of denim sitting out there in Aragonaba. And so the theme for the dress, for the festival dress fashion, then was denim. I put that on the table because when we talk about fashion and cloth and dress, it is also important to be the makers of these, of the textiles. When you're not in control of that part of it, there's a big challenge there. And
All right, Laura Lee.
Yeah.
Is your presentation ready that you want to show us? Because
sure.
I also want to hear from you what is being done at the institution that you work as the head of a department to dispense this information in a way that it will influence the outcome that you are telling us is your dream.
All right, so are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Awesome, good. So this is, no, not share, Laura. I did the wrong thing there. Go in present mode. What you're seeing here is some of the work from students from second year to final year, right? And they engage in different classes: design, textile printing, right? Sometimes they're given a kind of a brief to work with, right? So for this particular one that you're looking at here, I don't know why my screen is frozen. The student was given a brief, 4 briefs to work with. She was given a brief that looked at the 60th celebration of independence, which is next year, right? She was given a brief to look at designing for one of our major hotels. She was given a brief to look at designing from one of our fashion designers who does predominantly men. And then there was the other one. And she was now to bring her own uniqueness to the designs, right? So she put together her theme, she put together her mood board. So what you see here is 2 designs, one influenced by the flag, right? And she's using some leaves, some palm leaves to mimic the flag. The other one is influenced by the music through the drums, right? Seems like my screen is just frozen. I don't know what's going on. There's another one here from our second year students, right? There are courses that they engage in that looks at African art history, that looks at African textiles, the history of textiles in Africa, in parts of Africa. Also they look at Japan, they look at India, they look at traditional textiles across those continents, right? Most of the time, like myself, who I am a graduate of the college, they are very excited about the textiles from Africa, from the various parts of Africa. And you find that they use motifs that are, aligned with the Ashanti, the Adinkra symbols. They use that a lot. We can also see that in our landscape through the grill work, etc. Right? Now, they're doing projects. I cannot, whether they will continue with this, Dr. Meeks, or not, I can't tell you.
You read
You know
my
what
mind.
I mean? Yeah.
You read
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah, whether they continue that's a whole other story. Because I remember one student saying to me this semester, when I thought it was a very exciting project to work with these 4 briefs and bring your design aesthetic to the table, she said to me at the end of the day, but me not really interested in them something there. You know what I mean? So as much as we want our students, you know, to hold on to the African connection and to bring it forcefully into the spaces that we can design and create, they still have their own minds. You know what I mean? And if they are not connecting with it in a real way, then it is a challenge to, you know, to really to see it come to fore. I must say, however, they're very excited about the Ankara prints. They're very excited about that. You know, what you refer to as African prints. As you say, Dr. Meeks, there's no such thing. But the Ankara prints, they're including that in some of their own designs, right? But the other question on the table is, are we, and this is just a broad question here now, are we holding on to a certain aesthetic that reads a certain way? So it looks a certain way, it is African. It looks a certain way, it is Asian or European or any other peon that you want to think about it. Where is the space for the kind of evolution in style? Because that's what fashion is about, you know. Fashion evolves. Fashion is influenced by so many things, right? It mix up and blend up. Right?
Let's open up that discussion then, Laura Lee. Have you finished with your presentation?
Yeah, I think my screen is frozen. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Because this thing about what evolves and how it evolves is a very important part of what we need to examine and where we need to go. Earlier, Janine spoke about, I'm not exactly using your exact words, Janine, but you talk about what the market responds to. And there is a way in which we also need to talk about how the market is engineered. When we talk about tourism and hospitality, which are also 2 of your strong areas, if we never put ackee and saltfish into the hotels, if we never put chocolate tea, then the tourists have not had a Jamaican experience. If all we give them is the steak and potatoes that they are accustomed to, or whatever it is that they eat from the markets from which they come. So that in the hospitality industry, we engineer a Jamaican experience. We engineer a demand that somebody will then say, when my friend was here last year, they had ackee and saltfish, and I would like to know what that is. This broad question now, and I want to bring Zam back in, and I would like all of you to comment on it, but we've ignored Zam for so long, I want to bring him back into the picture about the broad business of educating ourselves out of the discontinuity, which Professor Cooper mentioned when she spoke about the once upon a time we used to have indigo, and which Laura also mentioned when she spoke about the once upon a time we used to have cotton that we sent to somewhere else, and then we had to discover that we had all of this denim that we had produced. I want Zam, if you could help us look at some of the ways in which we could educate ourselves. What is the role of fashion shows, of stage shows in this education that we're talking about, so that as we evolve, we don't leave ourselves behind, but we bring ourselves as part of the evolution. Would you please come in, Zam? I'm going to ask all of the panelists to comment on that. Where is Zam?
I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm gonna sing some Bob.
All right, go on now.
I've got so much things to say right now. So much things to say. Me have a whole heap of sitting right down here. I mean, I think time I got allow me to say it, but let me say this before. Years ago, I came to Jamaica and I spoke to a couple of people at the Edna Manley College. And I proposed to them that I would help them to develop a curriculum to teach what I thought was necessary to be taught to people who were interested in studying fashion in Jamaica. I left Jamaica in 2000 to study fashion because I went to the Philip Sherlock Creative Arts Center and I did a course there. I was already a business person, but I'm a person for education. And they only had a certificate course that I could have done at the time. And so I left Jamaica to study. I came to the United States as a student. When I spoke to the people at the Creative Arts Center, then some couldn't teach the class because I'm going to have an associate's degree and I'm going to need more than that. I mean, I understand them academic criteria. I mean, I have no problem with it, but I think that to look at someone like me and say, well, then you need to have a certain degree. It's like saying to Buju Banton or Beanie Man, so them can't teach music because them never go to music school. At a certain time, you have to look at a person's body of work and their accomplishments and allow that to make room for the fact that their knowledge might not have come through formal means, but it's knowledge nonetheless, and it's valuable knowledge that can be used for the collective betterment of everybody. And so I have no problem with formal education because some people take that route. I stopped at an associate's for the simple fact that when I went to college, I was already a business person for 7 years. And I realized that no matter how much I would have gone to school and spent money and time, they were never gonna teach me what I already knew. So to me, it was a waste. But for others, I encourage them to go to school because not everybody is as fortunate as I am to have the aptitude to teach yourself. Like right now, I'm teaching myself shoemaking. Nobody is teaching me, I'm teaching myself.
It's for those reasons that I raised the question of other platforms.
Yeah, so here is what I'm saying now to get to that. Man, I have a tendency to just drift off sometimes, so keep me on track. I am saying that we have to not do the intellectual bricklaying of saying, well, pitting our Europeanness against our Africanness. We are African peoples who were colonized. That's a part of our history. That's a part of our heritage. And we need to accept that and say, okay, this is where we are, and ask ourselves, where do we want to be? And then figure out how do we chart that course? Like, you know, my work is very Eurocentric, but it's appreciated because it's Eurocentric work through a Jamaican lens. So when I present my work, I am proud to be a Jamaican, and everybody knows that I am a Jamaican. I'm a Jamaican international designer. I'm not a New York designer. I'm not an American designer. I am a Jamaican international. I live in New York. My work is shown in Paris and it's sold all over the globe. But at my core, I am a Jamaican.
You know, Zam, I feel like I want to bring Professor Cooper back into this discussion.
All right, bring her.
And yes, because what you're saying connects to the essence of a comment in the chat. And the essence of the comment in the chat is about our multi-ethnic nature and about the fact that we don't have to choose. But you know, some people, not having to choose is a privilege. As someone who has been in the classroom, especially during Heritage Week time, I have been to many schools where the African students are made to apologize for their African being. Not to get up and say, I'm sorry, you know. But here we are in Heritage Week and people come in dressed in the out of many one dressing. And the little children are not given African clothes to wear, you know. They're not given African clothes to wear. They have to put on a sari that they have never seen and them don't know what it means, or a kimono, or some. So here we are celebrating Heritage Week and we don't say to our beautiful African children, come in a one dashiki or one lapa or one head wrap. We give them other people's things to wear. And then when we talk about the evolution of fashion, you know, so the sari no evolve into nothing, and the kimono no evolve into nothing. It is timeless, and it represents the thousands of years of a continuous embracing of one's culture. I just want to put all of that into the mix and to ask Professor Cooper, if she's back with us now, if she would comment on that. And I hope everybody has a chance to read the chat, because there are some other controversial elements in the chat. Somebody says they embrace being 100% mongrel. Me don't know if that is something that other people would wish to be called our mongrelness. So Professor Cooper, are you there?
I've always been here. It's just that my mic off and the camera off. Me die, me I hear everything. I'm gonna like how someone say, we are in like how him like him more brand me, you know.
Me like you, and you look pretty.
Thank you. First of all, I have to big up my friend whose name I temporarily forgot, old age, Lucille Junkere. She's a person who's been doing a lot of work to reclaim our indigo production. All right, so I'm wearing a dress designed by an African-American designer. She goes by, her brand is Damali African Wear, Brenda Winstead, and she travels the continent and gets the fabrics and puts them together in a very eclectic kind of way. I say that because when we talk about European aesthetic versus African, you can use African fabrics and design within a so-called European design mode, but it's still branded with the fabric that gives it a different sense than if it had just been plain linen. I wear a lot of linen too. I like Irish linen. I'm not gonna throw away what the best of what the Europeans have produced. But one of the other issues is that a lot of what the designs that we're calling European is walk and thief designs. You know, the European culture is a culture of commandeering, appropriating, and when them don't take your things and finish with it, they make you feel so it's not even yours. So we have to understand that the European aesthetic itself is not in any way, quote unquote, pure. So basically, my position is, you know, I mean, that point you make about the children not having any sense of this is our style and our design. Yeah, it's something that we have to try to reclaim, because we have lost the African aesthetic in terms of the fabrics, the designs and stuff, because when people think of high fashion, they still think of Europe. And I have to big up my brother Kingsley for Caribbean Fashion Week, because this has been a space where you have a lot of international designers, but you have a lot of local designers. And he has tried to push for the recognition that the fashion is something that we can make a contribution to global fashion. We have designers from Trinidad, Barbados. And I just think we need to recognize that we are at a position now where we have been colonized, we have been forced to embrace these European modes of being, but we can resist. We don't have to just say the only fashion is European. The last Caribbean Fashion Week that was held, we had Nigerian designers, and yes, they were designing using doing suits, European style suits, but they had a twist. The fabrics that they were using were not conventional European fabrics. And so you got a sense of an eclectic aesthetic. So we you know, and I'm not prepared to call it mongrel. I am saying we are predominantly African and we have elements of other cultures that we can use, but my identity is not mongrel at all. Me know say me is Africa.
Thank you. Was there
I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Allow you wanted to make a comment on that. Please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Just a quick comment about being degrading the our culture by the colonial masters. I know when Laura said something about yeah, they've been brought from Africa, as in the Jamaica, as in Caribbean island, brought, and the loss of culture. Even though I must tell you the truth, most of the African countries colonized, yeah, Nigeria, one of them. One of the major challenge that we face, or let me say they face, because it is our ancestors that they face those challenges. And then they fought for us. And that is what we are enjoying today. And some of those challenges were when they started this former institution, which is the first university or first institution in Nigeria. Now, the whites believe that the African drawings are child drawing. It is meaningless. Our design or the way we do some of our things, it is meaningless. And even though the way we dress, they don't want it. They try as much as possible. At the beginning, yeah, most of those students or most of our father then decided wearing trouser and this. So if you don't wear trouser or shirt, you cannot even defend your paper or come to class. Some of those who fought for us, they call them the Zaria rebels. There are about 10 of them. There are about 10 of them. When they get to certain level in the institution, getting to their final year, they turn against the whites, mostly about their drawing, that you have to draw this is professional, as in making sure that you have to look like human. They turn against it. They say, see, making the head big and the body and the leg short has a meaning. Even though the way we dress, that back then, I remember this thing goes on to the extent that they were almost being expelled out of school, and all of them are ready to go. That we have to stand and we have to teach our children our culture, both in dressing. I don't have to wear suits before I can come for my defense. We wear the agbada, and we wear, if it's going to be a tie-dye batik, we wear it, or the weaving with ashoki. That's the way we're going to wear to come to come to the class. We are not ready. So most of those design and all those elements, and one thing again that they did, they started creating a movement. When I mean a movement, they tend to deviate from the European movement, just like Impressionism, Dadaism, all those zim of the European. Then they create those movements. One of them is Uluism. One of them is Onoism. Uluism is from the southwest Nigeria, which they are designed that they use on the body during the festival. They started transferring those designs onto the cloths, onto painting, onto ceramics, and so many like that. Now, Onoism is from the western part. Most of the motif that we can see on whether on the sculptural piece of the art or all those artifacts, they started transferring them or into fabric and all other things that we are doing. We have another movement. So many of those movements stood up, and then they started writing about this movement and writing about this motif. And then that is why we started knowing who are the people who really pioneer most of these things. How do we get to know that, okay, if you see a particular symbol, how do you know that it is our own and it is from this is a part of Nigeria? How do you know that the Adinkra, it's from the same thing I believe the Ghanaian face too? Because once they come, they want to change your culture totally. But less for you and less for the people who are going to do this thing. And one of the challenges I see, and then aside from that again, what even though Professor Wale Soyinka was among those who started writing and then having or creating workshop. Some of the workshop that they do was an Imbaring Bio. And the Imbaring Bio workshop, now what they now do is that aside from those who are educated, Now that I mean, they want to use them to kill this culture. They now embrace the uneducated one, and who, when I mean uneducated one, those who did not go to school. Mama Nike Okundai was one of them. Lamedi Fakeye was one of them. They embraced them, started using them, and to create and also promote this local and industry and the design. That is why today, and then from then again, it was transferred into the institution. That is the textile, transfer into the institution, and each time, every year, once you get to, and they send most of the students to this former this thing where most of this, that is Oshobo, I mean, to go and learn, not just the former school alone, to go to that community to spend about 6 months. We call it intern. I did that too when I was in third year. We learn more about it again, and then it makes us to understand, and then the knowledge being passed from generation to generation. That's why in the fashion industry in Nigeria, you can't sew cloth without we putting the Ankara or all those batik or this thing in it. So they will not be able to really turn this thing on. Anyway, there's a lot of story. In fact,
there are many stories, Alo, and I want to thank
and I believe, yes, and I believe that we can start the same thing in Jamaica. All we need is just a step, and then we keep moving, and that's what we're doing today.
I want to thank you so much for putting the business of the festivals on the agenda. Jamaica is a land of festival, every kind of festival, food festival, storytelling festival, music festival, all kinds of festivals. And they seem to me to provide an avenue, not just for earning money, which I know Janine is concerned about, but they could also be an avenue of research. Janine, the festival industry is not only a big industry, but it is perhaps one of the biggest earners in the cultural industries. So this emotional thing that I'm not sure if you like it or you don't like it, you know. Every time you say it's an emotional something, I say, she'll fight against how me feel about my clothes.
Only if it converts to money. You see, the thing about it for me, Lady Cooper spoke earlier about the class aspect, and we must not lose sight of that. There is a class dynamic that is at play, because one of the most recognizable context for some of Jamaica's fashion lies within the dance hall. The dance hall realm, which is seen as the underground, right? And yet this is where a lot of the traction globally is being had. You know, learning the dances, and again, I speak about the vibe. So it's really important for us, for it to be valuable, for all the emotion and the vibe to be valuable. We have to find a way to connect to the market so that they will pay for something that they recognize to be indigenously ours. And you spoke about how the education process would happen. I see that as the platforms and how within the creative industries alone, it is such an interdependent industry that if we talk about the musicians, and I spoke about it earlier, the musicians being adorned with designs from our local designers, with interpretations that connect with the culture. As long as if we do that in a very systematic way, in a very persistent way, a persistence is necessary in getting to the place where over time persons will be able to say, okay, this is what represents Jamaica. This is how the vibe comes out in a tangible way. Alo spoke about earlier, you know, in certain official functions, for example, our Prime Minister, how would we adorn our Prime Minister on an official visit if he were going to be representing Jamaica's fashion? What would that look like? You know, so if you can't translate it and move it over into a tangible realm, it is emotions
Which
Yeah.
is why, Janine, I'm putting our various festivals on the table, because they provide a platform for doing research to see what people are wearing to festivals. They provide an avenue for exposure for persons who are already in the industry, and they also provide a platform by which we can educate our people and ourselves about all the issues we have been talking about that goes into the reclamation of an identity, which we then transform into what we're calling fashion. And I need to make, yes. Yeah, who is there?
Laura.
Yes, go, let me give Laura Lee a chance, since you spoke most recently, and then we will come back to you. Go ahead, please, Laura Lee.
I want to, Allow spoke to some things about motifs and iconography, and that was part of what this discussion was supposed to be about, right? And I want to bring it back a little bit by just showing some stuff that has been done, where the designers and artists have been looking at imagery that is from Jamaica, right? Yesterday I was in the GK, the Grace Kennedy lecture series, only to learn that I didn't know that we had endemic to Jamaica 20 spiders, 50 land snail, 67 fern, 7 palms. That is where some of the image. So when we're talking about this brand Jamaican, what are those things that's going to make it uniquely Jamaican? We have to look at the symbols that we're using in the designs, and we have to create a kind of an image bank for these symbols, so that my students, any student, any researcher, when they're thinking about design for Jamaican design, there's this bank of information that they can pull imagery from. Right, that is an important part of the industry, the textile industry. So you're looking at the screen there at Emerita Baker. Emerita was one of those. I think everybody in JBDC know Emerita. He passed on last year, who spoke passionately about what we need to do within the textile industry in Jamaica and where we need to start. We need to start harnessing those imagery. And I would dare say that to be able to set up a kind of an image bank, it's going to be a collaborative approach. We need the historians, we need the anthropologists, we need the illustrators, we need the designers, we need the marketers, we need everybody at the table. Dr. Meeks asks about the festivals. Even before we get to the festivals with the things, we have to have an understanding about what is the essence of this festival. So if it's Ganja Festival, for example, it means that we should have some cloth, some textiles that is showing the motif of the marijuana.
Yeah.
Right.
Laura Lee, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. There are 2 other people who want to make a comment on this particular point, or emerging from the various speakers. And then there are 2 very important issues I would like us to address before we have to come to a close. So forgive me if I recognize that Allah wanted to speak and that Carolyn has her hand up, and then we can take those 2 and then come back to other issues. Is that okay with you, Laura Lee? Everybody?
Sure,
Thank you very much. Yes, Allah, you had wanted to make a comment.
Yes. Concerning what the marketer said about, not just the musician alone wearing this cloth, but our leader. What I mean, our leader, our prime minister, and the ministers. Most of, and once they started patronizing what we call this made in Jamaican batik, tie-dye batik, automatically you will see our children, the followers, and we started seeing them, because we want to follow them in anything they wear, what they do. That's the same thing that was done in Nigeria during the regime of Obasanjo. That is the former president of Nigeria. When he discovered that, okay, the tie-dye batik from Abeokuta and some Oshogbo, this thing is going, as in it's kind of going down. What he does is that he embraced everywhere he's going. He even wears suit, but wearing tie-dye batik everywhere he's going. and then whether in function in the marriage. And this thing again was embraced by the elites, because most of them want to do the same thing what the president is doing. And then once this have been embraced by the elites and this thing,
Yes.
other people follow. And this thing again revive back what we call the production of the cotton industry, the tie-dye batik in Nigeria, and boom it very well. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call that wearing your policy, because last week we spoke about the need for policies to support the dreams that we have been dreaming. And then not only do we need to have it on paper, but we need to live it. So thank you for that very important contribution about what we see our leaders wear. Can we just now recognize Professor Cooper, who had her hand up? Professor Cooper, have I lost you? Just give me a moment to check.
Oh, somebody
Okay.
came to deliver something and I told them specifically to come after 12 because I'm in a meeting anyhow, so I had to try and just them have to just leave the things downstairs. All right, I'm sorry. What I wanted to say is quickly, we have to look at the role of politics in determining how dress is transferred to a larger domain than just a personal. Remember the 1970s. Some of the people on the panel are too young to remember the 70s. The Kariba suit was designed by Mrs. Ivy Ralph, one of our top designers, as a formal dress suit for men, as an alternative to the jacket and tie. It was popularized by the Prime Minister in the same way that Alao just told us how this politician, popularized the indigenous techniques that were dying. So that we have to recognize after the 70s, 1980 came and we returned to quote unquote elegance. So the JLP government, I mean, I'm not being controversial, I'm just being factual. The JLP government was the one that brought back the jacket and tie because this was seen as a sign now of a return to order, civilization, and everything that was opposite to the slackness and the looseness of the manly government, because your neck is no longer tied up. Your neck is free. You can breathe properly. So we have to look at the role of politics in determining what becomes seen as official dress. And if we start to rethink what we mean by official dress, then our current Prime Minister might say to himself, well, why am I wearing this necktie? Why can't I go back to the Kariba? But of course, it was the PNP that brought in the Kariba, saying, you can't do that.
You finished me on that point. I'm the moderator. I can't say anything. I'm not allowed.
You're laughing, don't me that. I hope
I mean, it
your laugh is rather eloquent.
It sweet me. but I wouldn't like us to end without looking at what I think are two very important points in this thing about embracing and the cradle of who we are. And that is the materials. If we still don't have the materials, we don't produce the materials locally that we need for this industry to evolve, then we are still in a kind of colonial, neo-colonial relationship with that which we do, especially if after we don't make it now, we are not keeping it for ourselves, but we're making it for the global market. Just like how we used to send them with orange and then eat out the orange and send back the skin to us or the guts as marmalade or whatever. So we need to consider that. And then we also, I believe, very importantly, need to consider copyright issues. Once upon a time, somebody had to see you physically to thief your design because you spoke about the thieving of who we are. But now they can snap you on Zoom. What do we need to put in place to ensure that we have the raw materials we need, and then how do we protect that which we have produced are the two questions I'm putting on the table for our panelists to address now. And can I pick on Zam, from whom I have not heard in a little while?
No, I'm going to answer that. I think we have to start where we are. I heard somebody talk about denim in Jamaica, or that it used to be produced and somebody's trying to get some kind of production going again. I mean, my business and I would be somebody who would be interested in accessing that, paying for that. I use a lot of denim, and it would be a pleasure for me to be using denim made in Jamaica, because that for me is a powerful selling tool for my work. Other kind of fabrics. I think I saw Robert show me some prints that were made by some of the people down there in collaboration with the gentlemen from Nigeria. I'd be interested in purchasing some of that. So I think that new products create new market. I'm a firm believer in that. And so if we can start to produce the thing and make people know that it is available, then the thing will find its market. So we have to just start where we are. I made some suggestions in the chat. I think that in time you can read it, because I don't think that time would have allowed for me to say everything. So I just typed it up. If you guys are serious, I would be willing to teach a class to the designers, business aspects of it, you know, how to sell globally, what you need, you know, what to expect. You know, I don't mind sharing my knowledge and helping others to get up to par where they can compete on the global market. But on the subject of copyright, I think it's a wasteful thing. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. Don't worry about people who copying your work. Just try to be prolific. I have people who copy my work all the time. I may never sue them. I may never try to worry myself about that. I said they can copy my ideas, but they can never replicate my methods or my concepts. Those things are unique to me, and the people who want the concept and the product that is made by a certain methodology can only come to me to get it. So, and then again, me say, if people can live off of my ideas and eat food off of my ideas, God bless them, you know. So I wouldn't so much worry about copywriting stuff. I would concentrate on trying to define and refine an aesthetic and trying to produce unique work and selling that. I think that more progress can be made in those areas than to say, oh, like I do consultations with designers here all the time, and sometimes them come and say, let me see what you have, and I say, oh, I can't show it to you now. And I'm like, listen, don't waste my time. If you come to me to help, how am I gonna help you if I don't know what you're gonna need help with? You know, it's just an absurd notion to me to think that your work is so great and so esoteric that you need to protect it because people are going to thief it. So.
All right, thank you for that, Zam. We're going to leave that question, those two questions, as things that we think about and talk about outside of this forum, because you have taken us into the final broad areas that I wanted to ask all the, yes, Janine.
Just a short comment.
Oh, is you was over there laughing? Is you was
no,
laughing
I'm
about
not
the topic?
guilty. I'm not guilty. But one of the things I'd like to plug in right here, we spoke about not making the materials and so on. The truth about it is, from an industry development standpoint, we don't really need to be making everything, but we need to have a structure, a supply chain, and be able to identify the different sources, because we can always create designs and get them manufactured elsewhere. But the key is to have a structure in the industry such that there's a consistent supply or consistent access, you know, a little bit of order. So I think that's one of the things I'd want to put in, because when we speak a lot about Jamaica being a country of samples, it's because when we are innovating and creating, we are not looking at the logistics behind what we are creating. We have to identify sources. We have to be very structured in the manner that we go about producing. And when we talk about value chains, we have to identify all the various stakeholders that can influence or propel you to, you know, because you know I'm all about the money, Amina. So it has to be, yeah. It must convert. It must make sense. And what the best practices in other countries, while we talk about the culture and the context and everything, behind that is a well-oiled machinery that speaks to structure and supply chains and order. And you know that is what sustains you in the market, because now over time you'll be able to be recognized as a big force in negotiating on what we say is Brand Jamaica. So I really wanted to put that in there, and I have nothing to comment on the copyright issue at this time.
All right, thank you very much. No, we want the money too. So go out there and make all the money. I was just troubled by not being able to understand whether you was dashing away the emotional value that we attach to that which we create. You don't have to answer me now. When I book you up, we can talk about that, because I do want to give each of the panelists an opportunity to share what is their dream for the industry. And as I did last week, I want to show in a little bit of art, because we know how we're all connected. So many things about the fashion industry we discuss ears ring and necklace and ring and all of those things as part of it, and how those linkages are created. But for the person or persons who are I'm really concerned that we are not celebrating all of who we are, and how do we bring all of who we are into that which we put on as our second skin. I sought permission from Umbala to read one of his poems that I love so much. And I asked Umbala how he wanted to be introduced. He's a poet and a percussionist. And he said, don't forget that he's also a visual artist. And I said to him, that no rhyme. Me have two P's. Me can't just say visual artist. And him say, all right, say poet, percussionist, and picture maker. So here is a poem by Umbala called This and Me, while you all think about your dreams, and we will have that right after. This and me. All this and me. And me that you hear up in the sky. Voice of bird and toe, dig deep in a dirt, I grow like tree. Can't separate me from ground and air, and the farthest sea can't separate you from me. This and me, all this and me. Every leaf is my finger, and light years away, me eye them star up the night, and my skin is moonlight, grass and rock and sand. Every crater upon the moon, every ring round Saturn, and the sea and the Piniwali, and you naked in the river. All this, I mean, how do we celebrate all of that and represent it in our second skin? Panelists, what are your dreams? We can go in any order, just indicate to me that you are ready.
Let me go first, guys. My name starts with the last letter of the alphabet.
All right, the last shall be the first.
Yeah, I always say I'm the Z, and the alphabet is incomplete without me.
All right.
Yes, I would love to see we start moving from the discussions into the activism of creating the kind of things that we envision. And sometimes the vision might not be so clear, but in beginning to create it, the vision becomes more clearer, because in real time, you see what is working and what isn't working, and you can adapt. I would love to see, and I think I spoke to Carlton Brown. Many of you might be familiar with Carlton Brown, about this, that we need to create a Jamaican Fashion Design Council, where we have our own support system, and we have our own awards, and we have our own platform for exposure, and supporting designers who need that kind of support. I would love to build a factory in Jamaica. It's something that I've been contemplating for the last many years. And sometimes me go back and forth with it. And last year me get a place and say me I go do it. And my mother say, well, yeah, go to Jamaica, go do. But I would really love to see industries being built again, production facilities. Right now I'm in the works of opening, don't know when, but soon, a supply store where I send machines, trim, like zippers, all of that kind of stuff that might be difficult to access, that I have easy access to here, to make available to designers. We need an e-commerce platform where the best of what Jamaican fashion is, you know, we can go through a selection process of saying, hey, these designers are ready, let's put them on the platform, while we are helping to develop those who are almost there, but not so ready. And we market that globally, where people in London, people in Japan, people in all over Europe and America who are interested in things Jamaican know that there's a place that they can go to purchase that and to support that. I would love to see a government subsidized program, and I have the connections to do it, where every season we have 5 or 6 designers coming to New York to do a group show and to do market, where them have them booth for selling their stuff to stores and that kind of stuff. And you prepare them and you bring them, and you give them that group platform until they're able to manage that on their own. You bring in another set. So things like those. I'll stop there. I have more ideas, but I'll just.
But you're gonna leave some for the other people there.
Yeah, may I give
leave some
time.
for Laura.
Yeah,
leave some for Laura, who has been putting some of her comments in the chat.
You just send her an email, tell her to reply to me.
Okay. Laura, your turn. What are your dreams?
I endorse all of what Zam said a while ago. And once upon a time, we used to do that, you know. We used to prep people. JBDC, Jampro used to prep people to go to WWD Magic, to go Pret-a-Porter. And we need more of that, because, you know, our market in Jamaica is small, very small. And, you know, there are bigger spaces outside. The diaspora wants the things from Jamaica, the things Jamaican, right? So I agree with the brother on that. My dream is to, you know, I think about my students a lot, you know, because when they invest 4 years and, you know, a couple $1 million well in their program, and they graduate, and then I don't see them practicing outside, you know, I get concerned, because yes, they come for the certification and all of that, but also we want them to see, I want to see them transforming the space, the landscape in design. I want to see their designs get people wearing their designs. You know, I want to go to the shows and the festivals, Dr. Meeks, and see people wearing them designs, wearing the cloth, wearing the fashion, wearing the shoes, wearing the jewelry, you know, adorning their homes with the ceramics and the paintings and all of that. And so we need a system. You know, I know the economics is a big part of that, you know, because, you know, it's tight.
All right, leave that part. That
you know?
is not your part. That part is for Janine.
But that's what I want to see. When our graduates from our design schools can be fully engaged in the industry and are being sustainable, they're earning, right? Then I know that we're on to that road, that path again, where we can really be prosperous, not just for the money. You were asking about that. You asked a question about if it's just for the money. No, it's the social well-being. It is all of those other things, the good of the culture for us to know, to be able to say, when your granny sit down with you and talk about, you know, the good old days when we used to work at Oregon Harbor, or I used to work at Carib Batik, or I used to work at Irika Designs or Studio L Designs, and, you know, the fabulous designs that were coming out, because it used to happen.
And another day, Laura Lee, we can talk about the relationship between well-being, love of self, and productivity, not just in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality. are going to leave.
Hello?
No, let me go to the money lady because you can talk about prosperity. So Janine, tell us your dreams, please.
Okay.
My dream is to see Jamaica's industries, the many industries that we are seeking to develop, to have some order so that we can look at a sustainable source of generating livelihoods, not just for some, but for anybody that can connect with that opportunity. I would love to see us developing these different industries in a way that it is accessible to all who are willing to take advantage of the opportunities. I would love to see us exporting. I would love to see us making money as a country on something that is so valuable as Brand Jamaica. You know, just some order, just some structure. Perhaps not so much talking, but you know, action. One of the things I like was what Zam said when you spoke about an e-commerce platform. We have one in a Zam.
Yeah, tell me about it.
The JBDC.
Afterwards.
Not now, but
No,
afterwards, please.
The JBDC launched the Things Jamaican e-commerce platform with that in mind. But now we need a structure, right? We need to be able to say to the market, we are reliable, we are quality, we have it, and we have it in a sustainable and consistent way. And this is the price for it.
Thank you, Janine. Just before Janine came in, somebody was trying to get my attention. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was. Okay,
Hello?
Yes, hello, your turn. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Your dreams.
Yes. One of my major dreams, or as a pioneer of this festival of the cloths, and also representative from Nigeria. And one of my biggest dreams is to see this thing working as a cottage industry the way it works in Nigeria, and also being supported by the government of Nigeria, by the government of Jamaica, our leaders here, the Prime Minister, and all of them. Because if this thing is being supported and we have this cottage industry going on across the island, it will just create job for those who do the dyeing. Because in Nigeria, we have those who do the dyeing, and we have those who create the design on the sponge, whether adreleco, which is this in cassava resist, or the adre alabella, which is the candle wax resist. So it didn't create job for those who do the dye, but those who create the design. Aside from that one again, those who create the design will sell to those who can make use of those designs. And those who make use of the design, they do the design on the fabric in a large quantity and supply to the retailers, while the retailers take it to the market. Why the from the retailer, then we have the consumer who come to buy it. And that is why in Nigeria, there's hardly you see a street that you don't have a tailor shop. Whether 2, 3, or 4, 5. So that thing creates a lot of job opportunity, and it is a division of labor. And if you have that here, you know, they said, "Haidu hand is a workshop of the devil." If you don't have things to do, if anybody look at you, you will see who look at you and who doesn't look at you. Yeah, and then you will see who are you in a way, and then you want to fight unnecessarily. You know, things like that. Those are the things that create thuggery or so many things in the society. But when you have something doing and it's bringing you money, even though if somebody slap you on the road, you know that, see, fighting this person is going to disrupt all my work that I need to do today. You just tell the person, "Thank you, you know what, man, I don't have time for this," and then you walk away.
Thank you, Alao, for so eloquently displaying the thread of the web of connections that can be woven through the development of our cloth, our textile industry. Professor Cooper, yours is the last word on the question of dreams, please. What are your dreams for the industry?
Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Yes. Well, my vision, I prefer to call it a vision rather than a dream,
okay.
is that as a society, we will value the creativity that comes from the masses of the people and use that creativity to shape a vision of what Jamaican culture is. The language is everything that we poor people create with disregard. The language, the fashion, the philosophy, the religion is not taken seriously. And if we take that seriously, we will propel development. And the politicians need then to put in place policies that will ensure that the people start to see what they produce as valuable, because people know it's valuable, you know, but they're not seeing any connection between what they are doing and what the elite are saying is important. And that is where the connection needs to be made, so that, for example, in St. Elizabeth, there's a group of people that they're trying to redevelop Watland Daub architecture. It's something that has lasted. Watland Daub is another form of building that has just been disregarded. And so what we need to think of is how we can reclaim some of the things that we used to do. And then a slightly, what might seem like a contradictory point, we need to recognize that we really can't do everything here, and that maybe going back to manufacturing cloth is not something that is really economically feasible. I agree with the people that want to make money. So we might have to have a kind of division of labor where we might create some of the ideas and we get other people to make the cloth. Robert Young, one of the brilliant Trinidadian fashion designers, he usually comes to Fashion Week. He always asks people when he brings his clothes on, how many people in the audience are wearing clothes made in the Caribbean? You understand? Because it doesn't make sense for the fashion designers to make the things and we're not wearing them. And then the same Robert talked about going to India and realizing how much cheaper it was to produce some of the work that he was doing in Trinidad on a much smaller scale. And he was conflicted between wanting to just import the stuff from Trinidad or continuing with producing, import the stuff from India or continuing to produce in Trinidad. So we really have to look, you know, countries like Nigeria are vast and there's a huge potential market for their products. Our economy is much smaller. So we might have to be looking at how we can specialize in what is going to bring the most returns to us. So it's very complicated, but I think we have to start with a Jamaican consumer to help the people who are buying to know that they must invest in what is produced here.
Thank you very much, Professor Cooper. Martin Carter asked me to remind you that we do not sleep to dream, but dream to change the world. So I agree with you. It's a vision that we need to put to reality. I hope we have been able to follow the very interesting contributions in the chat. I hope that JBDC has been able, yes, to capture it as part of this discussion. It has been my absolute growing experience. Delightful to have been with you. So many other aspects of this. Harold Davis is right that we might need to have a fourth and a fifth. It has been my growing experience to have walked with you through the second version, Jamaican Hands and Hearts, encircling the cradle of Brand Jamaica. Maybe we are right about how to understand cradle. It born here, we see it born, we have it to nurture it. And now that we found love, what are we going to do with it? I would like to invite Mr. Harold Davis to come back now to say thanks and to tell us what the next step will be.
Wow, wow. Well, I'm just sitting here enjoying the richness of the conversation and the richness of the vibe. And I must say that in the conversation, I've learned quite a few new phrases. I've heard Professor say, for instance, walk on teeth in describing what the Europeans do. I found that very interesting. You know, I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank for just the conversation, such the richness of the conversation and and the depth of the conversation as well. Professor Cooper, thank you so much. Laura Lee Jones, Alawa, you know, you are our resident. You soon get a complete Jamaican passport, no worry yourself. you are honorary Jamaican for sure. Zam, thank you so much for your insights, and definitely some of the ideas that you have. I'm definitely in support of a lot of the ideas that you have put on the table. I believe that definitely as a guest lecturer, we at JBDC would welcome you. And I know Edna would also welcome you as well. I'm speaking out of turn, but I'm speaking in turn because Dr. Amina is here, and of course Laura is also here. But definitely
just let me know when you are ready. I'm available anytime.
And as Laura and Janine had mentioned in terms of some of your comments, there was a time when we used to carry designers on an annual basis to New York shows and other shows in the States, and also in Europe as well. We need to get back to that. I agree with you. Jamaica is a small market, and in fact, our wealth creation will be led by our impact in the international marketplace for sure. I want to thank Janine for her insights as well. And Janine is the lead for our marketing services program, under which falls our Things Jamaican brand. And on the topic of brand, on the topic of Things Jamaican brand, as I said before, as I said in my opening comments, the Jamaican brand is perhaps the strongest per capita brand there is in the world. I don't know how many of you know on this call that recently a study that is led by the World Intellectual Property Organization called the Global Innovation Index. Jamaica moved up 10 spaces on that Global Innovation Index last year, while other countries were moving in the other direction. And we moved up mostly on the back of the strength of our brand. Not so much the infrastructure that we put in place, as Janine has alluded to, in terms of the need for that, putting the infrastructure in place. Not so much, we're still behind where that is concerned. But the brand of Jamaica and our ability to generate new products and new services and so on has propelled our movement even on that innovation index. We have so much to harvest from the strength of our brand, which we still have yet to really dig into, both from wealth, from economic wealth, social wealth, and well-being as well. We haven't really begun to harvest in the way in which we know the potential of the brand is there for us to harvest. So my job is really just to say thank you for sharing the session with us. Thank you for our participants who were very, very active in the chat, and we really appreciate that as well. That means that the conversation has been robust, and the conversation will continue. And invite you in that same breath to our session next week, where we'll be talking about, what we're talking about again, Santia? Moving forward. How it is that and Adira in Amiyaba. That's a Jamaican and African mix-up sentence. We love to blend it up like that. Adir refers to the whole tie and dye industry, as you know, and Yaba is about family coming together. But what it is that we need to do to move forward, really, let's continue that conversation. Next week, we're going to have folk from our Nigerian High Commission, hopefully, folk from our ministry speaking about that, folks from our financial institutions speaking about funding for the sector and things of that nature. How do we move this thing forward? Yes, we talk a lot as creators. A secret about creatives that many people don't know is that we love to chat. we love to talk. We love to talk. That's the truth. Maybe part of the creative process. But some of that conversation is required for us to, first of all, be on the same page, for us to absorb all of what it is that we have to contribute, put it in the pot, and then move forward. Yeah? So we are having this conversation with these three series of three legs of the conversation. And next week, we're going to be focusing on how it is that we're going to move forward, how it is that we're going to take these conversations that we've been having last week and this week and package it such that we can move it forward towards the to creating the economic wealth and the social wealth that we know that our textile industry can contribute to. So thank you, Amina, as well for masterfully weaving the conversation together. You are our master weaver, if you don't realize that. You are our master weaver, man. So thank you again for masterfully guiding the conversation and certainly bringing in your own expert insights as well. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for our technical team. Sansia, thank you, big up. David and company, thank you very much for our IT team as well for making it happen. So we'll see you next week, same time, same place, where we have more wealth in our conversations when we speak about moving forward. This has been Festival of the Cloth, conversation number 2. Thank you.
Blessings, everybody. Walk good.